Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to the Roundtable Discussion on how to utilize artificial intelligence to debunk misinformation and fake news. My name is Alexandre Amaral. I'm speaking directly from Brazil, and I'm super excited to be here. This event has a lot of interesting people who are about to speak. It's being co-hosted by MILEN, the Media Information Literacy Expert Network, Deutsche Welle Academy, and also the British University in Egypt. So a lot of interesting things are about to come. I'm gonna do a super quick introduction of our speakers because I want to get right into the discussion. As I said, they have all already created incredible projects, so I apologize if I leave something out of your introduction, but due to the sake of time, I'll just keep it short. And I'll ask you each to say a hello, a friendly hello, and not hi, nice to meet you to everybody once I speak your name. So let's start with Jochen Spangenberg. He is the Deputy Head Research and Cooperation Projects at Germany's international broadcaster Deutsche Welle, a unit that operates at the intersection of journalism, IT, and media science. How are you, Jochen?
Thank you. I'm very well here. Greetings to everybody wherever you are in the world from a rainy and gray Berlin.
Awesome. The next one I'm about to introduce is Charlie Beckett. He is the founder of the London School of Economics and Political Sciences journalist think tank, Polis, and a professor at the LSE Department of Media and Communications, and currently leads their journalism and AI project. How are you, Charlie? Oh, you're muted. We couldn't hear you.
Yeah, that's the traditional mistake, isn't it? For all media professors to forget to unmute. Nice to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. The next up in line is Tamar Kintrashvili. She's the Executive Director of Media Development Foundation in Georgia, an Associate Professor in Media Ethics and Propaganda Research Methods. She runs the fact-checking platform Myth Detector and is also a member of MILEN and a dear friend. How are you, Tamar?
Fine, thank you. Greeting from Tbilisi. Nice to join this conversation today.
Awesome. So the next is a friend that I met 30 minutes ago, but I already connected to him, Rabiu Al-Hassan. He is the director and managing editor at Ghana Fact, which is the first fact-checking organization signatory to the International Fact Checkers Network in Ghana. How are you, Rabiu?
Good. Hi, Alex, and it's a pleasure to connect with everybody on the platform, on the panel today.
And finally, but not least, Nagla Elimari. She's a media expert and consultant for the Middle East and North Africa. She founded the Research Center at the Faculty of Mass Communication in the British University in Egypt, which is co-hosting this event as well, and is the lead international expert for UNESCO award-winning Media Information Literacy project in Jordan. How are you, Nagla?
Hello. Welcome to everyone from Cairo, or very hot weather, unlike Berlin and London.
Awesome. So I think we're ready to start. I'm gonna shut my mouth here because these speakers have much more important things to say than me. Why don't we get started with Jochen? Jochen, we were talking this week and you told me that before we do anything, it's important that everyone's on the same page of what we're talking about. So the definitions. Often when we speak about artificial intelligence, it seems like rocket science, this very complex thing. But I want you to try to demystify that and how that can be used to fact-checking or verification.
Okay, again, yeah, you have to get on the unmute. Well, if I'm the right one to demystify it, I don't know. I'm going to try a bit, but certainly Charlie can come in there as well, because what Polis have done is really quite amazing in the field of artificial intelligence and journalism and how they relate, how it can be used and so on. So they've done some fantastic work, and he will surely point to some of the literature they have produced in that area. Yeah, but what I find is very important is not to demystify, but to come to some understanding of what that is, artificial intelligence. And there's a lot of areas that are covered, and sometimes it is a bit opaque, or people are not really quite sure what is included and what is not. So what I often say is that there's lots of different areas that are part of it, or that are considered part of artificial intelligence. For example, machine learning is one. Often it is now called deep learning or so. Then there's areas like data analysis of all kinds. And then there's all the different fields in the human language technology sector, natural language processing and so on. So I think these are all subsumed in some way under that banner or under that label, artificial intelligence. But when we talk about particular applications, I think it would really help a lot to name what it is. Let's take social media analysis. When we analyze an abundance or a huge amount of posts on a certain network, what kind of analysis are we doing? And so if we say, are we applying, are we running an artificial intelligence, that doesn't really explain what exactly is being done there. Is it a form of language processing? Is it a form of data analysis? So that, I think, it would be an important part to start with. And maybe another point to point out, and I've taken this from looking at some of the literature beforehand. So often there is just, on the one hand, there's a technological definitions of what AI is and what it works for. For example, pattern recognition, face recognition, managing large data sets, and so on. And the other side is the human element of it. And that refers to AI or technology performing some of the work that has previously been performed by humans. And that is also surely something we come to, because that is often one of the big questions is technology, is artificial intelligence, or one of those areas I've outlined, is it going to replace humans or not? And I have a very clear opinion. In my view, no, it's not going to replace the work of humans, rather the contrary, it's going to free them to do other things. It's going to support them, and done in a sensible way. It is a huge and fantastic opportunity for journalists and media organizations, but I leave it at that to start with.
Awesome. I think those are great opening remarks. And let's just follow up on that. So Charlie, Jochen just spoke about your work at the police. You released a global survey about how media is currently using and could benefit from this technology. So how are journalists and news organizations trying to adapt to AI?
Well, I think the first thing you have to say is that the dirty secret is there is no such thing as artificial intelligence. The idea of a sort of robot that can operate exclusively on their own and make decisions and create things on their own does not exist. As Jochen was alluding to there, AI is a whole series of technologies. It's machine learning, it's about algorithms, it's about data. So often we sort of use this umbrella term for things that encompass quite routine uses. And at the moment, most of it is quite routine. It's doing quite repetitive tasks, often at scale. So it's often doing things that humans can't do, like sifting through vast kind of data sets for investigative journalists. Or it can do very specific tasks like translation, for example. But the key thing that we revealed, as it were, when we did a survey of how newsrooms around the world are using it, was that it's across all aspects of news production. So again, the focus, the headlines was on robots writing stories, but actually I would argue it's possibly most important with the relationship with the reader or the viewer or the user, personalizing content, recommending content, helping people to connect
أيوة
to
سامعني
the
سامعني
content that interests them. And that means it's systematic because it impacts on all aspects of news production and distribution. It has a systematic effect, and that means that anybody connected with the news organization, from an investigative journalist right through to the marketing people, needs to pay attention to the possibilities, at least, that AI can provide. Thanks.
Awesome. No, I think, well, I completely agree with you. And I think it's very visible for us, at least, we're not necessarily the tech people, to see how that can free up time and efficiency, especially for journalists now, so they can implement their efforts into something more productive, come up with more stories. Now, one person that has to do a lot of that in the next couple of days is Tamar, because I know that Georgia, you're having elections this weekend, if I'm right?
Yes, tomorrow.
Tomorrow. So maybe you can tell us, Tamar, how are you already putting in practice some of that AI?
Yes, thank you, Alex. I agree with previous speakers that human work is not replaceable. And artificial intelligence, how we defined it, usually we use it for data analysis purposes, is only helpful in terms of saving our time and identifying the problem. The Myth Detector, the Georgian fact-checking platform I represent, recently joined Facebook's third-party fact-checkers program, which allows us to access a big number of data, widely distributed content, because it's impossible to use only traditional ways of the content analysis. So social media is so broad, and all citizens are now producers of the media content. And it was quite interesting for us to discover the information bubbles we never seen before, that individuals, not only traditional media or their Facebook pages, spreading this information on coronavirus in organized way in different groups. Facebook program allows us to access virally disseminated content, identify the problem. But the next step is debunking and verification of this content, and human work is crucial in this regard. Then we can label this content and notify people who share this information why this content is false or misleading. It's not about removing this content, but providing alternative information to those who was misled. So, and we just recently started this program from the mid of September, and some people approached us. They shared information without knowing that it was false, and they deleted this content themselves. It helps in terms of media literacy as well. And there are some media outlets, they translated from English the fake story on coronavirus, and Facebook restricted distribution of advertisement. They try to improve the problem. And I think in this regard, this machine learning approach or the algorithms are helpful. And we will monitor elections tomorrow. We already identified some problems. And I think we can discuss the benefits of this approach and some disadvantages, because there are criticism whether this is a new way of censorship. I disagree, because it's possibility to reach wider audience, because fact checkers resources are also limited.
Thank you a lot, Tamar. No, I definitely agree. This is a point of discussion we need to come back to. You mentioned so many things there, media literacy, and then I imagine that AI must really make a difference when it's the case of Georgia, where you have larger campaigns of disinformation that may help a lot to detect it faster. But I want another example from the field, now from Rabiu. Maybe you can speak a bit. You started your Ghana Fact as well just last year. What are some of the opportunities and challenges that you have been facing?
Thank you. Quite interesting, the perspectives that have been shared earlier. Interestingly, AI or machine learning, using it for fact checking seems to be the shiny new thing now. But for us from Ghana, and I would say for us in Africa, it's important to pay attention to some of the basic things and the basic ways people share misinformation. So I can say since we launched sometime in August last year, and we getting verified by the IFCN, largely, if you look at some of the things we flagged as misinformation, there have been things that have been shared on some of the traditional media platforms here in Ghana, radio, TV, also on social media. WhatsApp is the leading social media platform in the country, Facebook as well, another leading one. So you look at Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, Instagram, these are the platforms where people share this information, even by word of mouth. So I would say currently we are in a situation where largely the restrictions that were imposed because of COVID-19 have been lifted. But if you look at the situation and how it is playing out, it looks like life has returned to normal. So the suspicions when initially we recorded cases of coronavirus, people questioning whether it even exists, are kind of being revived now with people saying, we've reversed the restrictions that were imposed because of COVID. People are going about their normal duties. People are not wearing face masks. People are not socially distancing. The cases are coming down. So really, the concerns that were raised before, are they true now? So the work of fact checkers, the things we flagged before, are becoming even much more relevant now because of the situations we find ourselves in and issues of people saying COVID-19 doesn't even exist. So there are basic things that we can deal with, and there are basic things that fact checkers need to maybe use in flagging misinformation. But there is a bit of combing through large data to put out maybe simple fact check reports to debunk issues, like what we did some few days ago, where we had to comb through about 110 reports basically to debunk some misinformation about cholera outbreaks in Ghana. So with this, it would be important for you to use some tools to comb through the data so you can quickly put out misinformation to debunk campaigns of this false narrative that cholera cases have not been recorded in the country for the last 3 years. So there are two sides of the issues, and fact checkers would have to balance the two in terms of ensuring that they do their job and do it fairly and reach the wider public. Do the simple things, but also maybe add the shiny bits of using AI in fact checking.
Awesome, thank you very much. Yeah, no, it's interesting to see how the regional perspectives kind of shape how people use it differently and creatively, the fact checking. A good person to maybe talk about some trends and some unique perspectives is Nagla Lemery. Nagla, I know that you have been part of the jury for the last grant that Pointer gave to fact-checking initiatives that were using AI. So you got in touch with a lot of different people trying to come up with different ideas. So maybe you can share your take on it as well.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Yes, maybe I'd like to focus more about and talk more about the fact-checking and AI. And from the competition we had and the work we did in selecting the projects across the world, it was very clear that again we have a huge gap between North and South. And I think when we heard from our friends from Ghana, it's clear cut that we still heavily use human journalists, fact checkers, much more than AI in our part of the world, while we see projects, all the projects which applied to the grant on AI and fact-checking were all of them from either the States or Europe. So this is also something maybe we need to think of. Why is it? Is that for the benefit of everyone or not? And from the perspective of our part of the world, I have really to raise 2 or 3 points quickly. So there is this gap, technology gap, but also there is the ideology gap. And we started to see this with the Facebook policy on hate speech. And I mean, I read, it's very interesting to read what Mark Zuckerberg yesterday said about the policy of Facebook following the US elections. And he said, for example, that he feels that he has to protect the integrity of the democratic process. So again, we hear from a big tech giant tech company that he is kind of the guardian of the democratic process. What does it mean when we see this from our point of view? And we saw so many accounts on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram being blocked or labeled as hate speech, while for us, it was our point of view in some of the big cases we believe in. So there is this. And another gap really within the same country. It's interesting to see in our part of the world who are the fact checkers. Yes, there are fact checkers like our friend from Ghana, but the most active actors in the fact checking process are really the governments, those who are in power, or businessmen. So again, there is this huge gap between those who can use AI in the fact-checking process much easily than us and the civil society. So we are kind of talking about three levels of gaps here. Gap north-south, the very traditional one coming back again. Gap between ideology around, so AI, the artificial intelligence is not a neutral concept. It's full of ideology again. And this, we feel it here in our part of the world. And a gap within the same country again, between those who are able to use the latest, they have the money, they have the power to set this, and the civil society who is lagging behind. So maybe this is, I'd like to throw this to our colleagues and to hear from them what they think of these three gaps or these three main points. We are a little bit concerned when we talk about debunking fake news, who is deciding what is fake or not, and the use of machines again in the process. As it was said, I think, yes, we talk about artificial intelligence, but there is someone behind the artificial intelligence. There is a human intelligence behind the artificial intelligence. And maybe we need to remind ourselves all the time that we need to ask ourselves who is behind and why.
That was an awesome contribution, Nagla. I think you brought us so many important points there. The matter of transparency, that we also need to know who's behind the checkers. We need to talk about ethics, and we need to try to address how can we diminish this gap between North and South, between different realities. So maybe Johan, Charlie, Tamar,
yeah,
you're always speak now.
Yeah, Nagla really raised important points about the abuse of these novelties, technological one, because in transitional democracies or in authoritarian countries, social media, artificial intelligence are abused, and we are also detecting the cases when a non-existent person communicates with public, and that's why we need fact checkers and investigative journalists to follow these trends. As regards how to differentiate real fact checkers from government-backed fact checkers or government, we also have some ruling party representatives calling everything fake news and debunking news about themselves on their own. We are part of the International Fact Checkers Network. Like Rabiu, we have certain methodologies. We are certified fact checkers, and the quality is ensured by Poynter Institute, who is the lead of this process. It's updated annually. So we're transparent in terms of our methodology, accountability. Also, we also make some mistake. We have correction policy and the code of conducts and rules we are following.
Okay, so if I can chip in something, Madam Nagla couldn't have said it any better in terms of raising some very crucial points about the workings of fact checkers. Maybe I would say specifically in African countries, because we are faced with some unique challenges. So operating in Ghana, where there is this polarized debate always between whether you belong to our party or you belong to the opposition from the two dominant political parties in Ghana, you would find that you would be operating in a very from a very sensitive place when whatever fact check report you put out would mean you are speaking for or against someone. So that's where being signatories to the IFCN comes in. That's where being transparent with whatever you are doing comes in, hidden or being inspired by the code of principles of the IFCN. So we have our laid down methodology clearly laid out on our platform. We have the codes that we operate with, the transparency of methodology, transparency of funding, transparency of sources, all that laid out clearly on our platform. And we have an honest correction policy, which is also well laid out on the platform. And if there is any challenge with the fact check report, we encourage that people reach out to us so the corrections are done. Now, beyond that, when she asked the question about resources and who has the opportunity to use AI in fact checking and what have you. Now, when you look at the way we operate as a not-for-profit social enterprise, largely being financed by grant-making organizations who are clearly laid out on our platform. So we cannot in any way compare ourselves to the amount of resources at the disposal of government. And I should mention that at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic in Ghana, we had a situation where there were restrictions that were imposed on the country in terms of a lockdown. And there were videos flying all over on social media where people were reporting that it looks like the security agencies that had the mandate to enforce the lockdown were taking the law into their own hands and beating people to ensure they remain home. But some of the videos that were being put out were videos that had been taken from other African countries. And so we had the Ministry of Information in Ghana take it upon itself to do some fact checking. But we insist that the public should know that when the Ministry of Information puts out a fact check report, it's evidently different from when a fact checking organization signatory to the IFCN puts out a report. These are two separate things and they are not the same. So these are things that we would have to discuss, and as time, as things evolve, people would see through some of the things that political figures in the country would do in terms of fact checking, and what verified members of the IFCN, which use a global metric that has been well accepted around the world as a quality media standard, who use that in executing their jobs, how it will all play out.
Thank you, Rabiu. That was super. No, I think those are super important points when you talk about transparency. We get into the dilemma of ethics. Not only the humans behind the technology can be biased, but the technology itself can be biased as well. I want to hear now from Jochen from a developer's point of view.
Yeah, that's just an important point. It's also something that was raised earlier, and I want to pick up, I mean, for the sake we have so little time, and bring that up. Yes, there are those that provide AI solutions or solutions that use technology. And there's a whole number of matters or issues that come with it. You mentioned ethics, that's very important, but also bias is another important issue. I mean, how or what kind of bias is built into an algorithm? Because after all, these technologies and these algorithms are developed by human beings, and whatever their views on certain matters may be in there as well. So this is important to consider. So those are those providing solutions. I mean, we also have developed and are providing a number of solutions. One you may have come across, which is a plugin that supports you in video verification and image analysis. Sorry, there's somebody ringing the door. So that's the provider side. And then there's also the user side. And this is something I would like to raise here as well. There are so many tools out there that anybody could use, many of them freely available. They range from geolocation tools to image recognition to data analysis and what have you. So they're all out there and they can be used, and they support you a lot in verification efforts. So what is still missing here at large is that people, and we're talking about media and journalists, even that journalists are accustomed to them, that they know how to use them, they know how to operate them, they know what they are good for and what they're not good for. So this is very important too. So I sometimes get surprised that there are still journalists out there who do not know how to operate in reverse image searches. So this is important to learn and to know. And then also as a second step, it would be important to be aware of the results these tools yield. I was talking earlier about bias and so on. So this also needs to be there. This awareness needs to be there among those users. And there's still a long way to go. And this does not only apply to journalists, but also to the public at large. Generally, if anybody wanted to, with an internet connection and a computer, you could become a fact checker yourself, a verification expert. But we need to do, and since this is a media literacy event, so we need to do a lot more in terms of teaching, practice, bringing this into schools to young people as well, and also, of course, the professional media community. So there's still a lot to do. Quite a lot has been done. You were talking, Ravi was talking about what the IFCN does, or the IFCN net members or so. That's a very, very important work that they're doing, but still more needs to be done, and especially sort of on the ground level for people who are being, I hate that word, bombarded with all this information or so. So that's just a quick one from my side.
No, I think that's a perfect point. And the lack of skills that you're talking about, I believe that was one of the main results that Charlie Beckett also got on his report, that one of the best ways maybe to reduce that gap would be to provide people with, well, we're talking about here media and information literacy, but maybe artificial intelligence literacy is a thing in itself embedded in between. So Charlie, maybe you can talk a little more about that.
Yeah, one of as you say, one of the key issues that was identified, especially when you're thinking about access to the technology, especially from the news organization point of view, obviously the access is limited by things like how much money you've got. And there's a kind of inequality, obviously, between news organizations within a country and between different countries or regions as well, of course. But I think it's interesting when you think of previous technologies, take mobile telephony, which in many ways has been a really profound influence on journalists. It's made journalism so much easier to do. You know, we can use our mobile phones to communicate and to create content and so on, and people use it to consume news. And it's very interesting that in a region like Africa, for example, mobile telephony was exponentially effective. Despite the lack of resources in some of those areas. And in many ways, certain African media organizations and users were more innovative by using mobile telephony. So there's a kind of hope around these technologies that there might be a similar effect. But you're quite right to identify one of the key problems is simply understanding it. And we're all put off because if you're like me and you have, unlike Jochen, I have zero technological expertise. So I always think the analogy is a bit like a car, though. I don't honestly understand how cars work, but I can drive and I can go to really interesting places. But you do need at least that introduction. And a little advert, we created a 1-hour training course. It's free online. It's just an introduction to machine learning. And it was designed by journalists for other journalists, but anyone can look at that. And within an hour, you get at least a sense of what this technology is about. And that's really important, because even if you're never going to design a tool or perhaps operate a tool in an in-depth way, you still need to understand the tech because it's going to have some impact in your news organization. And it might be that you'll be reporting upon the technology, because we're going to be in a world where algorithms and machine learning are ever more important. So all those issues that the previous speakers quite rightly raised about bias, inequality, and the way that powerful people are going to perhaps misuse this tech, well, you need to understand the tech first. And so everyone really needs to get a little bit of basic literacy about this. You don't have to become a stellar tech expert, but you certainly need to understand the basics, and that is accessible to anybody. You don't need huge resources to get a little bit of learning.
Awesome. I want to follow up exactly on that. Question, even for myself as a journalist, would be, where should I start? Maybe. So maybe you can just follow up on that. And I'm just reminding everyone here who's part of the Zoom conversation that quite soon we're going to be open up for audience questions. So if you have a question, please just raise your hand in the chat and I'll get to you. As well, if you're following us on Facebook Live, thank you very much for being here. And you can also type your comments in the chat. So getting back to the discussion, how can I, a regular journalist, get started on this?
Maybe I can answer. Yeah. I will answer from what we are doing in the region once more. And I think one of our colleagues here mentioned that sometimes he is surprised to see how journalists are behind sometimes even the general audience people, users. And this is a fact. We see a lot of journalists, they think that being a journalist, this is just about reporting, writing, and not about verification and stopping and thinking about the information and trying to verify it. This is something we see. So I would say the first step is just a mind change. We need the journalists to change their mind that it is not enough to be a good journalist writing or reporting for the TVO. You need to be fact checker. And in order to be a fact checker, you need to go back and do the courses Charlie, for example, mentioned, or our colleague from Germany, how to use different apps to verify video or a picture or a story and so on. So, and this is more and more available online or within so many organizations providing training for journalists. But the biggest problem is, and I'm repeating again, it's the attitude of journalists themselves. They think that they don't need it. They are the ones who hold the truth, which is not the fact. I'd like to add something quickly related to our work as network, MILEN network, because we have this variety of backgrounds. Some of us come from the Western countries, others like me or our colleague Osama, we are in India or in Egypt, in the Arab world. And in this part of the world, we have a lot of people who don't write and read. However, and this is something every time I'm really very surprised, it's strike me every time when I see someone who can't read his own name. However, he is a user of the smartphone and he uses YouTube, Facebook, WhatsApp, like us, completely us. So maybe we need here to rethink this concept of literacy and who needs really to work with to give him or her the media literacy. It's not only the young people, it's not only those who can write and read, but it's literally everyone, including those who are using the technology, but they can't read or write. So even the concept of literacy here is to be, we need to rethink of it again.
May I add?
Yes, Tamar, please go ahead.
I fully agree with Nagla. There is a problem with journalists because they don't think they need to know the new technologies. That's why we decided to work with non-journalists, young people. We run media literacy programs with the support of Deutsche Welle Akademie. And our approach is that we're equipping them with all these necessary tools Johan just mentioned, open source data investigation tools. We are not imposing what is right or false. We're just equipping them with skills that are necessary to differentiate quality media product from falsified one. So our slogan is discover truth yourself. We have more than 100 alumni so far, and they are very good fact checkers. They're teaching media literacy themselves and promoting this idea of critical thinking themselves. They are also our contributors to our fact-checking portal, and this is a way how we can address this problem, preparing media consumers to digest the huge number of information wisely.
Thank you, Tamar. I see that Rabiu has already opened his mic, so he's eager to speak.
Yes,
Just reminding everyone, thank you a lot for there's a lot of things happening in the chat, a lot of resources there. So thank you, Charlie and Johan. People can go there and learn more about that. And send in your questions in the chat as well if you have any, or raise your hand. Go ahead, Rabiu.
Yeah, it's crucial. It's so important that journalists appreciate that times have changed and there is the need to rise to the occasion. You need to know how to use digital tools to verify and fact-check information being shared on social media and on the internet. So for us at Ghana Pact, leading to the elections, we're executing a project called the Fact Check for Peace project, where we are going around the country. Ghana has 16 regions. So we are helping about 30, or we've helped about 30 media organizations across Ghana to set up fact-checking desks in their newsrooms. And when I say media organizations, I'm talking about traditional media organizations, radio and TV. So we've trained members of the fact-checking desks who are editors, who are reporters, who are journalists, to know how to use digital tools for fact-checking. And we are in a network called the Ghana Fact-Checking Network, where we are drawing on our strengths and collaborating to fact-check misinformation on both traditional and social media. And in fact-checking misinformation on both traditional and social media, to make much more impact, we are hoping that anytime we flag misinformation, we don't reach people only online, but also we can reach them offline as well. So you produce content, you publish it on our website, which is the Ghana Pact website. You can also republish it on your traditional media platform, which is radio and TV, for the majority of the populace to consume the verified information. So this is another way of trying to encourage people to open themselves up to media literacy and know how to use digital tools for fact-checking and verification.
Thank you very much, Rabiu. Yeah, no, I think it's brilliant. You're all mentioning the importance of media literacy, and a good thing that actually makes me hopeful and excited for the future, which is collaboration. This AI thing and new technologies are enabling so many fact-checking organizations trying to collaborate with people from all over. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm wondering about what else that's going to impact on our future as journalists or fact-checkers, because not only we have the ethics standpoint, but we also have financial, editorial impacts. Johan and Tamar, I know that they're developing some cooperation, I believe, as well with Truly Media. So maybe we can talk about that. Johan?
I think collaboration is also a very important point, because often people do similar things in isolation and on their own, and then it's being duplicated. So it's just also needing resources. So that's why we have developed a platform, a collaborative verification platform called Truly Media, which is being used in numerous organizations, for example, internally in Deutsche Welle, in our editorial team, but also with human rights organizations like Amnesty International and many others. And through Deutsche Welle Akademie, we are also making that available to various other countries. For example, we've had a project in Myanmar where it is being used in the run-up to the elections, in Mongolia as well, in the last elections, and also in Georgia at the moment. So I've just only heard initial results or so, but with the elections coming up tomorrow, so that would also be interesting to hear how something like that works, trying to bring together. So that's what the aim is here in Georgia, for example, also in Myanmar and Mongolia, that different media organizations join forces and work together collaboratively on this platform, sharing not only their expertise, but also their findings, in order to be faster, to be more efficient, and to serve the public better. So I'd be interested to hear from Tamar if there's how that is going in the context of the pre-election coverage.
Yeah, we started using Truly Media this year ahead of elections, and it's truly useful platform integrating different open source investigation tools and helping to work in collaborative manner. The several students, mentor and editor and our fact checkers are using these tools to elaborate the one piece of work and to contribute, because sometimes you have to respond rapidly. And especially in Corona times, when you are in distance working from homes, it's a really useful platform. And we identified the many coordinated setting campaigns and fake story using Truly Media tools. And we will publish results of our fact-checking activities after election. And this tool was really useful in this regard.
Thank you so much, Tamar. We're getting close to the end of our discussions here, so I'll just open up for if you have any points that you think it's important to stress about before we end this, or if someone else from the audience wants to jump in, just feel free. Beckett, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I was just picking up really. I think that collaboration point is really important. Obviously, collaboration is a nice word. We all like the idea of working together, but it's also a real challenge. I think, you know, the work that Jochen and other people are doing is fantastic, and we've seen some amazing collaboration around investigative journalism globally and around fact-checking specifically. But it goes right through the piece for adopting to this AI technology, that you're having to see collaboration within news organizations. You know, you're having to see, you know, the data people talking to the marketing people, talking to the editorial people, and then really importantly, sharing knowledge between different news organizations, because as somebody said earlier, we don't all want to have to reinvent the AI wheel. There's a lot we can learn, not just about the tech itself, but about how you use it, what works, what's most reliable. And that's so important, obviously, around fighting misinformation, that there's so much you can learn from other people's experiences. And there is that danger of, you know, smaller newsrooms, for example, falling behind, but also that the whole news industry can fall behind. This technology is being developed by big tech companies. Generally speaking, they're doing it for very rich industries like pharmaceuticals or security or retail. And so the news industry has to work together. And I'm really encouraged. We you know, in our network, we are literally running a collaboration experiment, and we've had 40 journalists from completely different news organizations around the world working together. And what's been exciting about that is how much they're learning from each other. They're sharing their experience and their insights. And I think that's a really refreshing turn. It's born out of necessity. You know, we have to do this because we can't do it on our own. But I think that's quite an exciting, if I can be optimistic for a brief second, you know, I think that's quite exciting. And this event itself is great evidence of that. We've got so much to learn by listening to other colleagues around the world, even if they're not in journalism themselves.
Awesome. No, please be optimistic. I think we all need some optimism right now. Julius Endert just raised his hand. So if you want to ask a question, Julius.
Yeah, no, thank you for this interesting discussion. I just have maybe provoking question. We some weeks ago we could read about the GPT-3, this open AI powerful new language generator, which was able to generate endless text. And it seems to me that fake news then will be endless. And I like to hear from one of the experts, what does that mean for fact checking? Will we see a battle of AI in the future for the one agent who produces the text and the other who or which checked it?
If I can come in quickly, we're already there. We're already there. I mean, it's just always like a cat and mouse or an arms race or whatever you want to call it. Somebody's developing something that can be used to good or evil. And in the video sphere, we have that. It used to be very complicated to produce fairly authentic looking fakes. I mean, you know the term deep fakes or so. So that used to be quite labor intensive and also computer power intensive. Now it can be done with an ordinary machine, no big problem, and you can create fairly authentic looking pieces of videos. So that is being done now on a bigger scale, and it will increase further, and so will do the efforts that are required to find that out, to debunk that. And often those who are on the debunking side are lagging a little bit behind, but I think that's going to continue to be the case. I mean, we are just currently, for example, developing something in the audio forensics domain in a research project called Digger, where we really look at the audio signals in order to detect whether something has been tampered or manipulated or so. But this is always like following those who are sort of first. So it is already the case, and that is in a lot of domains that are affected here.
No, that's super interesting. The more we talk about technology, maybe it's the human factor in the end that's going to make all the difference, isn't it? The person behind the technology.
Well, yes, it's true. And also that's my point here. The human element is always required and needed. At the end of the day, somebody has to take responsibility. For example, if you decide something is fake or manipulated or not, somebody has to take the decision, the editorial decision, and also stand up for it. And of course, there will be mistakes. We will be making mistakes. I mean, that's in the nature of life to make mistakes. But that I don't think will be made by algorithms, by technology. There is that human element as well. And responsibility is another point that goes with it. Who will be responsible? Are you going to sue the algorithm, and who is it going to be then?
Thank you a lot, Jochen. Sabat Trawi, I don't know if I pronounced it right, but you are also with your hand up, so please go ahead and ask a question.
Yeah, this is my initial. I'm Soha Al-Batrawi. I would like to ask if actually media literacy people can join forces with health literacy people, because there are teams working in isolation, especially in the COVID-19 time. How can we get these teams together in order to raise the awareness of like all the people in the world? Thank you.
That's a super question. Thank you very much. Maybe Nagla, you can address it.
I don't know if I'm the right person to answer this or not, but I think it goes without saying that it is needed. It's absolutely needed to cooperate with those who are, they have the knowledge. At the end, we as journalists or media literacy people, we have the channel, but we don't have the information, and the information has to come from trusted sources. So who else other than those who are really in the health industry, health sector, to give out this? So we didn't see, at least I'm talking about the Arab world, the Arab countries, we didn't see such projects. But I think this is really important, and it needs to be put in place. It's back to the idea of cooperation. It's not only cooperation between journalists or media people, it's between the media and those who are trusted sources. So I don't know if any of our colleagues had an example of this kind of cooperation during COVID-19 in other parts of the world. But I can say that it didn't happen, and it's shame it didn't happen in the Arab world, but maybe it happened elsewhere.
Thank you very much, Nagwa. I think that's one perfect note for us to come towards the ending of our talk, especially because we're celebrating the Global Media Information Literacy Week. So that's a thing that we all could leave this thinking about. How can we proceed further? So I'm just gonna invite our speakers. Maybe they want to say some final remarks. I'm gonna join the bandwagon of positivity. So I really like for us to keep things with a good perspective for the future. So it's all yours.
I think the last question was about cooperation, and this discussion is one of the proof that we need cooperation in many ways. During coronavirus time, we developed some blogs on healthcare, calling some experts, scientists, but it was ad hoc approach. We need to learn more from each other, and we can use each other resources like we do in IFCN. They developed the Coronavirus Alliance, where we can use the already fact-checked story, because you can find that same fakes are and rumors distributed globally, and it saves time, it saves resources, and it gives better understanding on the global trends and the challenges that exist everywhere.
If I may speak, I don't want to sound negative. I'd like to leave a positive note and saying that artificial intelligence is a great opportunity. It's like any other thing. We need to learn how to use it wisely for the benefit of the community. And again, all this cooperation, all these ideas are more and more needed because of the pace, the artificial intelligence, and not a negative note, and knowing always the flows of the system. The danger is positive and not negative, because it pushes us to learn how to counter any negative sides.
Yes, go ahead, Jochen.
Yes, maybe just a quick one. I think there's many challenges out there when it comes to using technology, and we've talked briefly about bias and ethics and all that, but there's also, and that's the positive side, so many opportunities out there. We just have to grab them, and by we I mean the whole literacy, the whole media community, meaning all journalists ideally, or many journalists. So there's lots of opportunities out there. But then I have to be a bit more negative again. So if we look at what is happening out there in the world in various countries at the moment, be it Brazil, be it the UK, be it Germany, be it the US, election, Brexit, what have you, this is not very encouraging. So I wonder if artificial intelligence can solve the problem. I don't think it can. So what can at least support is education, and that includes media literacy. So we have to really make sure that at least the new the current generation, the young ones who are now growing up, and I do go into classrooms and teach kids in that field, they are the ones we really have to educate and train and support, because they're out there, they're eager, and then maybe there is hope for the future.
Of course there's hope, Jochen. No, but thank you very much for that. Now, Rabu and Charlie, please, some final words.
Okay, then Charlie. Okay, so I think I started off initially by saying that for us, it looks like the basics is what is crucial. The artificial intelligence, machine learning, fact checking seems to be the shiny new thing. And if we overly concentrate on that, we'll be taking our eye off the ball. So it's important we invest in that because we would need to use it. It would play a role going into the future, but we should still pay attention to the basics. And since we've spoken about collaboration, already there are some work being done. We know of the project by 4Facts in the UK, Africa Check in Africa, the pioneering fact-checking organization on the continent, and also Chekiado. Basically, the three institutions with support from Google are doing some work in this space. And I think through this, they are making it available. They're making the technology available for media organizations and also fact checkers. I think yesterday I tried visiting the page, and you can go onto their platform and get access to whatever tools that they've built. The Duke Reporters Lab has also done some work in this space. And through collaboration, we can leverage these tools and do some work with it. But we shouldn't take our eyes off the ball, because largely on the African continent, you need the human resource sitting behind the computer, identifying the problem and helping flag misinformation and disinformation, because that goes to the crux of the issue.
Yeah, I'll just agree with Rabi there that you know, we know this. When you're doing something like fact checking, we know that you can have the facts, you can be scientific, but unless you understand the human context, then all the fact checking in the world won't have any impact. And I think it's the same with this AI technology. We shouldn't just leave it to the tech companies. We shouldn't just leave it to the data scientists, especially with journalism. It's really important that everyone in news organizations, including readers, let's be honest, have some kind of understanding of this, so that we can shape it in a way that serves the human beings rather than just the technology.
Awesome. I think those are great words to end at. Let's serve the human beings and not the technology. I'd like to thank everybody who joined here at this roundtable discussion. I think we could be speaking for much longer time. So that just is a hint. Hey, MILEN, DW, British University in Egypt, let's do another one, maybe, who knows. But just thanking everyone again. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all the questions, and people are with their hands raised, but feel free to get in touch with us, write to us or any of the speakers, and we'll try to reply to you privately. So thank you very much. Tuning out. Ciao.